Hello, everybody. I was going to say that it's a pleasure to be here tonight, but actually when Niamh first asked me to present, my initial response was, how on earth am I going to get out of this? Because immediately I thought about all of the things that we're probably not doing brilliantly at Glenisk and the distance that we have to go. And then, of course, I heard that I was going to follow Tato and Radical, and my troubles were compounded. And you did me no favours tonight, ladies, because they were two brilliant presentations. So the first thing that I did was I put out a call around our office and I said, has anyone seen the digital marketing strategy? Because I thought I probably should look at that and figure out exactly what I was going to say tonight. And I was greeted by pretty much silence. So I followed that up with, has anyone written a digital marketing strategy? And the answer was no. So coming here tonight, I really thought, how am I going to speak as a credible authority on digital when the truth is at Glenisk, we are just making it up as we go along. And a curious thing, though, has happened over the last 12 months in that from time to time we hear that Glenisk is cited as a brand that's doing good things in the digital space. So we're referenced on course curricula, we're cited in case studies and at workshops. So we can start to feel a little bit good about that. So tonight, rather than focusing on the things that we are not doing so well, I thought that I'd take you through our approach, which is just our do's and don'ts, which is not the approach for everybody, it's the approach that works for Glenisk, and maybe a couple of sort of micro case studies. So I think that the strategy, if I was to define it, even though we haven't actually written it, is that we are making it up as we go along. And actually that's not necessarily a bad strategy. So one of the things that we do is we embrace it. We love social media. It is an incredible opportunity for a small brand, for any brand, because the first thing that it does is it removes that barrier that exists most of the time, which is the supermarket shelf. So we deliver product to a depot, and our customers then go into a store and purchase that product, but we don't have that interaction with the customer, and social gives us the opportunity to do that. It's a brilliant opportunity, as John said, for small brands because the barrier for entry is really low. It's not costly, and being the smaller brand does not necessarily put you at a disadvantage. I think actually being the smaller brand can convey a sort of an advantage to you because you can speak with a local, credible voice that maybe your competitors can't. And particularly when I think about our category, we're really up against some big multinational competitors, and we don't have their budgets, and we're never going to have their budgets realistically. But actually, we speak with that local voice, and it's imbued with a kind of credibility that comes from employing the vernacular, from speaking about the issues that matter to them, and there's a sort of a tribalism. We're the same as you, we're part of you. And I think that works really, really well on social media. We also really, really enjoy it. So I have to tell you that it's sometimes intimidating for brands to think about all the work that's involved in social media and how time-consuming it is. But actually, if you enjoy it, and we do, and Mairead Lynch, who's here in the audience, who does so much of our digital work and does it so well, loves it, lives and breathes it. And the great thing is it's not the part of your job which is about looking at budgets or trying to balance budgets or going blind, looking at a media plan or fighting with your accountant or whatever it is that you do. It's actually the fun part, it's conversation. And there's an awful lot to be said for it. So I think that if you don't enjoy it yourself, you need to find someone within your organisation who does really enjoy it. We also use it to inform ourselves. So it really helps us with our NPD strategy. It really helps us to figure out what our consumers want, because instead of broadcasting to them, we're listening to them, we're joining a conversation. So with traditional media like TV, if you have the budget and if you have a brilliant agency, maybe you can disrupt them, maybe you can grab their attention if you're very smart about how you do that. But Twitter, social media, all of those platforms is actually about joining a conversation and being an invited guest to that conversation. So I think that's really important, and then you use that in all of your research and your insights. I might talk for a moment about some of the things that we don't do. We don't use agencies, and truthfully, I'm not in the business of maligning agencies, and I know that there's certainly a role for them, but in digital and in creative, it doesn't work for us. It hasn't worked in the past. We have tried it, and it doesn't tend to work. And I think that there are plenty of really talented and creative and resourceful agencies out there in the digital space for whom digital is the bread and butter. But the problem for us is that it's so much more important than bread and butter. It's health and well-being. It's the future of the whole organisation. It's the viability of 50 family farms around the country. It's 150 kids of our employees who are clothed, fed and educated. It's 65 employees, it's 65 mortgages. And as a consequence, it's really important to us. So to actually hand that over to an agency for whom it's bread and butter hasn't really worked. You have to be really passionate about it. The other thing that we do is we don't overplan it. So the recommendation is always to look at content calendars. And we have very good intentions in that regard. Mairead generally says to me on a Monday, this week I'm going to write a content calendar. And by Friday she hasn't, and she says I'll write it next Monday. But actually, I think it's pretty good that we don't, because the absence of the content calendars can lend itself better to a sort of a more spontaneous, response. I interviewed a candidate recently for a job at Glenisk, and she worked in a digital agency. She'd interned there, and she was really proud of the fact that she was signing off her calendars 3 months in advance with her clients. And she said, you know, she worked for a beverage brand, so she said, look, on Monday, not in this market I should add, she said, on Monday we do a post and it's generally about fair trade, and on Wednesday it's how do you drink yours, and on Friday it's yippee, it's Friday, here's a hamper. So I think the point there is, I mean, I was incredibly uninspired, and also I think I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about the fact that people do this sort of yippee, it's Friday thing on social media, because if you're talking to conscious, sentient human beings who are able to turn on the internet, they probably know what day of the week it is. And you don't necessarily have to share that with them. So if you're going to tell them it's Friday, give them a recipe for the weekend, or invite them to an event, or do something that's going to make it relevant. But really what occurred to me was that if you are given the job of populating a content calendar for 3 months, you have a spreadsheet with cells that need to be filled in, and it just lends itself to repetition, and it really stifles all of the creativity. Whereas when Mairead sits down, she looks at the page and she says, what do I want to talk about today? What do I have to do today? What do I have to do this week? And yes, there are things that have to be planned ahead, but for the most part, she asks, what do I want to talk about today? And most importantly, what do our fans and our followers want to hear from us today? What do they want to talk about today? Because it's all about inserting yourself into the conversations that they're having. So I'm a real advocate of avoiding this notion of over-planning it, because I think it just lends itself to recycling the same old stale content. We don't talk about yogurt all the time. I think that's pretty obvious. Nobody wants to be seated beside the person at the party who talks about themselves, or seated beside the person in the office who talks about themselves all the time. It's just the same on social media. The other thing that we don't do ever is we don't switch it off. So it's really interesting hearing what Alina said earlier about Eva Longoria. You never know when she's going to come knocking on your door, but we don't turn it off. If somebody tweets us at 11 o'clock at night, we're there. Saturday, Sunday, we're there. If customers or fans or followers are taking the time to reach out to you, you better be listening to them, actually, if you want to really cement that relationship with them. So I read recently that a good response time is 12 hours, Monday to Friday, and it stretches out a little bit longer than that on the weekend, and I think that's ridiculous. So I think answer in 12 seconds. Answer in 12 minutes if you can't answer in 12 seconds. But if somebody has a health question about your product, they want to know now. If somebody has a complaint about your product, they want a response. They want to be acknowledged there and then. So if they have, a gone-off yogurt sitting on their shelf, they're not going to develop a bond with that yogurt over the next 12 hours and feel happier about it. They want to know that you're doing something about it. And I think that's really important. So we don't get it right every time. Sometimes we're allowed to sleep occasionally, but you know what? You really have to set the bar high for yourself, and this idea of let's wait 12 hours, nonsense. So one of the areas, that we're pretty proud of at Glenisk is the relationship that we've managed to cultivate with bloggers. They're a critical audience for Glenisk: food bloggers, fitness bloggers, parenting bloggers. And we work with them. We listen to them, we support and promote their work, and we extend their reach through our own platforms. And the point is that when we look at bloggers, we don't think about what is it that they're going to do for us. We don't send them a package and then tweet them 10 minutes later and say, did you get our package? Bloggers aren't stupid, they understand that. if you actually think about the things that you can do for them, you've got a much better chance to build a relationship with them. So one of the things that I think brands do badly, small brands particularly, is fail to leverage their own platforms. So we all have packaging, we have livery, we have social media platforms, and if we have followers, well, other people will want to talk to those followers. So there's a great opportunity for partnerships with other brands, with other organizations, and particularly with bloggers. So we do some really simple things that have just proved to be hugely effective. Every month in our newsletter, we feature a blog that we really like. We put it out there, we share it, we tell people that they should be reading it. And we don't do it in a cursory way, it's a considered review. We read the blogs, we understand them, and we make a recommendation to our database, which is really the oxygen that bloggers want. So it tends to kind of forge that strong relationship. Every food blogger now has a cookbook coming out, but very often they're self-published or they don't have the marketing resources of a publishing house behind them. So we share our platforms, we say, here's a brilliant cookbook, we tell people about it. And again, that really cements the relationship. When we had our pop-up store in Dublin 2 years ago, we invited bloggers in, we got them to do cookery demonstrations, we paid them for their time, but we gave them that platform, and I think that's kind of fostered a sense of loyalty that's worked really well. We use their content all the time, we share it, we credit it, but we share it, and that's really compelling and free content for us. And the most important thing that we do with bloggers actually is we feed them, because everything that we do is about getting the product front and centre and into people's hands, not necessarily in the traditional way of just handing out a yogurt, but actually getting bloggers and other influencers to think about ways in which yogurt can be used. So we sponsor the Blog Awards food category. It's a very cost-effective sponsorship for us, really terribly inexpensive. And one of the reasons that it's inexpensive is because we provide a lot of product in kind, so we cater the launch events for all of these. The first one we did was in our pop-up shop 2 years ago, so we had 150 really influential bloggers come into our pop-up shop, experience the concept, and it created fantastic traction on social media that night. And then we also catered the awards. The whole dessert course was created by Glenisk. So in the most recent Blog Awards, we decided to think about ways that we could really get bang for our buck and amplify our communication. So we created 4 really beautiful desserts, really booze-soaked desserts as well, which I think really helped with them. But they were made using our ingredients and helped along by plenty of whiskey and other spirits. And we put together a menu card for the tables, and we asked people to vote on what their favourite was, and we asked them to tweet, and we had a little competition going. So we were talking to a really captive audience, people sitting at a gala dinner, listening to the 150th award go through, starting to get bored, as you probably all are now as well. And they were looking for something fun to do. So they took pictures, and these were beautiful desserts. Fantastically interesting and shareable content. They took their pictures, they shared them, and actually Glenisk trended on Twitter that night. The response was really phenomenal. So I'm going to move on now and talk about our protein yogurt. So this is a new range, which launched in store a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't seen it already, you're probably going to be wrestled on your way out and forced to take a sample with you. So don't try and avoid that. It's going to happen one way or another. So this is a new concept that we had decided upon, a really protein-rich yogurt that we wanted to produce. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the role that digital had actually in the product development, because it's not just been instrumental in the launch of the product, it was actually instrumental in its creation. So we did a little bit of work, research on trends, and we came to the conclusion that protein was a really important trend for us. So we wanted to make this yogurt, and we started off by asking our customers. We got the experts on board, brought them in initially through digital, through email and social, invited them to take part in our groups. And so we had a fantastic response, an unbelievable click-through rate, an unbelievable application rate. And slowly we worked them through online surveys, and we pre-screened them, and we figured out how to segment those people. So who was into fitness, who was very focused on parenting and nutrition for kids, who was focused on diet, what were the kind of the key areas that we could divide this research into in order to give us the attributes that our products would need. So we did that work, and then we started to meet them. So we did in-person focus groups, we tested the concept with them. We tested the product with them, we figured out all of the flavours with them, we figured out the messaging, we figured out the packaging. And at each step of the process, we explained to these people who became Team Glenisk, as they were known, your opinion really counts. You are making something with us, and you're really a critical part of this journey. And so it was really about adopting these people into the Glenisk family, and the response and the loyalty that that cultivated has been incredible. So when we were ready to talk to people about the product, when it was ready to launch, we had some teaser campaigns, you can see on the second from the left there, to get people excited about it. But the first thing that we did before we revealed it was to talk to the people who'd helped us to create it. So they were all sent special emails saying this is what it's going to look like. They leaked it, of course, before it hit the shelves, but that was fine. We knew they were going to do that, and we really liked that. They were sent out packs, they got the product, they were given the product to take home. So we said, look, you made it, you get to taste it first. So they became ambassadors and advocates for the brand, and they talked to the people that they knew and really started to get people excited about it, and that was really important. And then we did really simple stuff. I mean, this piece of digital was very important. The video that you see there, which I don't think is going to play, but it's a terribly ordinary video. It just has the product attributes, what's special about it, and shows what it looks like, because this was a range that looks very different from the existing Glenisk range, so it was very important to get that visibility out there. And we invited everybody to have a free taste, so the first one was on us. So it got a really significant number of views through YouTube, but also critically through embedding it onto the Facebook page. And within a couple of days, we had 6,000 applications for the free taste, and that was all building into our database, and we were capturing that data at a ferocious rate. Really, really strong. And then, of course, we asked them to come back on social media and tell us what they thought of the product, and they did that in considerable numbers. The infographic just on the far side is that we had a really complicated story to tell about how this product was made and what the difference is between Greek and Greek style and why it was more expensive, because this product carries a significant premium. And actually, digital was a great way of doing that. So instead of a big long-winded speech, a simple infographic is often a very good way to do that. The other thing that we knew we needed to do was reach the influencers. We partnered with a brand called Wilson, who have a really strong online presence. Not a lot of brand recognition in this market, which is why they were really keen to hook up with us, but a really strong credibility in that health and nutrition and fitness space. And we knew they were reaching the people that we wanted to reach. So they sent out our product vouchers with their sets. We put their product into goodie bags that we sent to influencers. So we put together a list of about 200 people who are really strong, particularly on Instagram in the sports and fitness space. And Instagram has become a really crucial platform for us in this regard. So it's really important to leverage partnerships where you can, because we knew that they could bring us to this new demographic. And this is a really sophisticated, educated group of people who understand labels. They don't believe if they see low fat that it automatically means that it's healthy. They're far too savvy for that. They speak a different language. They don't talk about calories. They talk about macros. And we really knew that we needed to get into that mindset, and it really helped us to have the credibility of a brand like Wilson come on board with us and actually reach those people as well. They are young, really into fitness, spend an awful lot of time photographing their abs and putting them up on Instagram, which is really quite traumatic to have to look at on a daily basis. But they also like to photograph their food. So Instagram has been a really crucial platform for us in that regard. So these people we sent out packs to, they got cooler bags, they got sports singlets, they got product, they got a little bit of Wilson as well. And they started to post up pictures on their Instagram pages to huge numbers of followers. And suddenly it was just ticking up like a clock the whole time. And within 2 weeks, we had racked up 2,500 Instagram followers. The response was really incredible. And those followers were coming to us and saying, where can I get this product? Can I have a free product? They really wanted to try it. And now they're buying the product, which is really what you want, rather than handing it out free all the time. So this is just a sample of some of the information that comes through to us on Instagram on a regular basis. While I'm rolling over in my bed in the morning, they've already been up, they've done their hike, they've made their breakfast, and they're posting pictures of it. So as soon as you see that on the phone in the morning, all of these dishes are coming through and they're really positive things that are being said, and this is a critical audience for us, and Instagram has been really pivotal. So I think I'd echo what Alina said earlier about tailoring your campaigns to your platforms. It's really important. So the last piece, this is not a campaign or even a micro campaign such as the ones that I've shown already, but my advice on social media is to take a position. You don't want to talk about yogurt all the time, you don't want to talk about your own brand all the time. And actually, you can talk about the big political issues of the day, the big moral issues of the day. You can take a position on something important if it's important to your organisation, and actually you can really engage people that way. Because there's a certain respect, and that's something that local brands can do. So we took a position on the marriage equality referendum recently, and I think if some of our multinational competitors or other multinational brands had done the same, it mightn't have gone so well for them because it would have seemed a little bit odd or a little bit incongruous. But for us it was important, and we made the statement, product in there but not overly branded, and within a couple of hours we had over 1,000 likes on that post. So delivered huge engagement and also a lot of debate, so not everybody agreed with us, but really we were tapping into what the national conversation was about, and we did that early enough in the campaign. So a route like this it's kind of, fraught with danger, and you have to be careful about the sensitivities around it. Starbucks got into a lot of trouble lately when they started to talk about race relations, which is a national conversation that they felt was important and that their customers probably felt was important, but didn't necessarily feel that Starbucks was credible to talk about. So I think you have to be cautious with this, but for God's sake, don't just talk about your products. There's so much more to talk about, and you have to listen to what your fans and your followers want to talk about as well. And I really feel that if your organisation is walking the walk, well then you're really entitled to talk the talk in the digital space. Thank you.